A few years ago, I was preparing a theater spectacle where I projected a scene of hypnosis. My character was supposed to hypnotize two kids, a boy, played by a girl, and a girl played by a boy. They were supposed to regress to the true genders. I asked my friend Paulina to hypnotize me for educational purposes. I knew she used hypnosis in therapy with her clients. However, she declined firmly, offering me a theoretical book instead and suggesting that our long friendship would make such an act of hypnosis unprofessional. I hypnotized my actors. Some people said that even more so the audience. Fortune teller Blanca, who is just like me when it comes to not leaving something unsaid, commented that I made a mistake in my professional choices, opting for science rather than theater. I was curious if I could actually be hypnotized because one attempt failed. When I was a kid, I had a lot of nervous tics. I was biting my nails, curling a hairlock, blowing on my lip, moving my nose, blinking, juddering my leg. All this actor's repertoire was not in use simultaneously. Comedy was not my genre of choice back then. However, when Mom forbade me one tic, I instantly redirected my agitation. The first was probably a neurologist. He was knocking on my knees and they would have the stick of going up. I was about 8. Then, at 8 or 9, I was going to this young lady psychologist in big glasses and with rabbit teeth. Up to a point I liked her. And that probably explains why I mentioned at school seeing her. It was not because I watched US intellectuals in movies and understood that it was hip to have a shrink. Certainly Mom forbade me to talk about it. However, my love for coming outs dates very early, apparently. And here's the story how this young lady lost my respect. We did a lot of arranging breaks. I was taking masses of tests, which I actually liked because I was convinced that each answer of mine proves my genius, and I was in fact providing the matrix for state-of-the-art features of a genius personality. We were also drawing and being best girlfriends, when one day Lady Bugs excited me with the news that she had just received the newest board game. She got up on a chair and took it out of the closet. Called on me to take it to her desk, but imperatively ordered me to keep it shut while she was pulling some additional elements. But weren't we best girlfriends? Obviously, I opened the box at once. Oh, that holler! I saw a dramatic split-second alteration from a friend to a Medusa. Changelessly, with rabbit teeth, however. I was accused of baffling. I wonder, what was it that I baffled? The ultimate confirmation of my idiocy? Years later, I learned one more unpleasant thing about her. After one session with me, when she was praising my drawing talents, which, let's face it, were and are incurably surrealistic, she called my mom, what back then I understood as glorifying me, just as she was doing it through all the sessions. Yet in fact, she was calling my mom to express concerns, anxieties, and to criticize me. Just like at school, when my parents were called to listen how I have no talent in humanities, how I laugh at Nobel Prize winner Sienkiewicz, how I have no writing skills, how I proclaim risky things, or how I laugh at girls who bootlick. So one day Ladybugs showed my mom one drawing of mine. She commissioned a drawing of my family. To her dismay, on that drawing I was the biggest of all. As a matter of fact, that was not surrealism, but rather hyperrealism if you place that on spiritual grounds of karma and reincarnation. Unfortunately, bodhisattvas, when they reincarnate, they have to accept the burden of surviving childhood once more. Unfortunately, Western psychologists and their tests are completely helpless about bodhisattvas. A few years later, my younger brother was visiting psychologists because he was left-handed, or more precisely, ambidextrous, which according to communist and post-communist psychology and pedagogy was pathological. In 1999, after I came out, one professor of psychiatry told my mom that she could cure me from gayness with electroshock. In the meantime, the country experienced a political and economical transformation, and my tics did not. So now, the market was full of practitioners of energy medicine from Russia. I remember waiting for hours in front of one villa. Finally, I presented myself in front of a silent master who was touching me for 1 minute. One day, I curled my hair into a knot that I could not undo. I was tugging it and enjoying the pain, afraid that I would uptear my hair and have a bald spot forever. If I had it, spaceships with dwarves and duanthropoids could land on it. Finally, one day, my mom learned by word of mouth about this lady hypnotist who was famous for her spectacular achievements. She would lean across to the child and hypnotize not only them, but also their parents who were waiting and watching near. My mom did not embrace the opportunity to wait outside, so she was sitting on a chair and I was lying on a couch on some kind of veranda. It lasted an hour. Neither with words, neither with pendulum, nothing. She said I was too blocked and neurotic. My mom resisted as well. The hypnotist gave up. Mom was angry with me, with both of us, me and the specialist. Finally, I came down to a private psychotherapist who also practiced energy medicine. He had a practice in a basement. Both my parents drove me. He saw through within 2 minutes. He shut the doors. I was lying on a couch. The relaxing music was Enigma. Sad, dis-moi. Sad, donne-moi. Or Australian Aborigines. He would put his both hands at the crown chakra, pass the energy and talk. He was the only one of them I really wanted to return to. He must have seen through my sexuality, which still remained unclear to me, even though I was having sex with a peer boy 5 times a week. Because he started saying that I should read some philosophy like, surprise, surprise, Plato. He was also talking about Eastern philosophies, to which I replied that what he says reminds me of what my singing teacher, Maya, was saying when I was in the folkloric group. Apparently, they studied together and were members of a circle of Indian philosophy. While I never could relate anyhow, nor understood when somebody was talking about God, everything they were saying about East worked in me as an Aletheia anamnesis. Om Namah Shivaya. This is what we used to sing on scales as a vocal warm-up in the group. The voice should be projected through the third eye, she was saying. My peers would laugh. I was delighted. That was the only indoctrination I accepted willingly. One day by a dinner, I didn't bite my tongue and slipped out what the psychotherapist knew in 2 minutes, contrary to all the others before him. Namely that the source of my stress and tics is mums and dads. Which, by the way, is quite obvious. Soon I stopped being driven to sessions with the psychotherapist, which I attributed to my excessive honesty. Gods are not to be blamed for, after all. Om Namah Shivaya. However, apparently the therapist died of cancer. Thus, for years I flattered myself on not being hypnotizable. I would elucidate that it proved my massive psychic power. There is something to it, actually. If I really don't want something. Never happened. Once in the kindergarten, the teacher forced me to eat lettuce, and I didn't want to. Forced, I ate it, and puked it instantly. She was so mad that she was yelling that now I will eat my vomit, but her colleague stopped her. At high school, once the Polish teacher informed us that we would go to play Ubu the King somewhere, and I replied that we won't go because she didn't ask nor inform us in the first place. So we didn't go. I played Ubu. On another occasion, she made a pathetic attempt and sent to me and my friend, a Catholic journalist, to give an interview to a Catholic nationalist weekly, because we won a national championship in literature. We both told the journalist to sashay away. I said that I never made an appointment for this interview, and as an atheist and anti-clerical, I won't be talking to such a fish wrapper. My mom already doesn't buy me clothes for present because she knows I would say thank you and never wear them. Now mom knows everything. 3 times my parents taught me bridge, and I can't play it because I never wanted to. 10 times I learned how to do a tie, and I can't do it still. If I wanted to be a father, I would have had a baby. The result will never be brilliant if someone orders from me a text which I never really felt. My way or the highway. Meanwhile, Paulina's opinion on hypnotizing me mutated. I've always thought that it actually proves our professionalism when we are not afraid to apostatize at times. We arranged a regressive hypnosis session. Both of us wanted it. Paulina once hypnotized herself this way. We had lunch, we were talking, and suddenly, when I was looking at her books on brain neurobiology standing next to those on Egyptian mysteries, she said,
"Before anything, let's try one thing. Sit down, close your eyes, relax. Your right arm is heavy, as if you had a weight on it. It's dragging it down, but in a pleasant way. Your left arm is very light. Get up now, straighten your arms. Screw it, won't work today."
Because obviously, my hands went the other way round. We determined, however, that it was because at that moment I didn't have inner consent. Furthermore, I sat uncomfortably and was afraid of fidgeting. My arms were itching, the stomach uneasy. About 1 hour later, we tried a different approach. I lay down on a couch instead of sitting. Paulina lit candles and sage, turned the lights down. I was conscious all this time, yet in a different state. Sometimes I had difficulties with visualizing what Paulina's voice was demanding. I was supposed to sing or fall slowly and safely. I don't remember if it was her who created this suggestion or was it my own input, but I saw myself falling down between red rocks as if in a well. And she said then that I should imagine a lot of doors. And I couldn't, you don't have doors in rocks. I was supposed to pick one, and I can't see any. And I started analyzing too much, being overtly conscious. But I stick to an idea I heard. Middle, not on the verge. I entered as if inside the rock. I am walking, and it's all so obscure because it's a rock. And the voice tells me now to look around the place because everything started here and everything will come back to this place. And I'm in darkness. But I cut loose, and within a few seconds I started seeing something as if through a camera which is setting the focus. Now I had to imagine many doors again. I used an intellectual trick. There are 5 doors, pick a number, because I couldn't force myself to see those doors. And instantly I knew, 4. It has to be 4. Now it was a lot easier. I entered the 4th door. From that moment on, when I didn't see anything, I didn't panic that I was going wrong, that I not cut it. I cut loose and it would come. Until Paulina finally took me to the place where everything started and everything will come back to. And then to the awakening. Although I could easily step out on my own at any moment. I opened my eyes, darkness, room. I didn't want to get up. My body was still heavy. After all, Paulina turned the lights on. I sat. The light flickered and blew out. It couldn't handle all this energy. It happens. Now we could discuss what I saw.
The Regression Report.
Everything I saw was quite consistent, even if in scraps. This place where everything started was a big lake surrounded by greenery. Almost instantly I had this thought that I knew this place. It was the Sea of Galilee. Dalte maram lonina lu Elohai. 9 months earlier, I was in Israel. Near Tiberias, we were visiting a nice kibbutz. I was interested in the concept of kibbutz. Then we got on a boat and sailed through the lake to Tiberias. Nice thing happened there. The captain put a tape with the Polish anthem and we got up. And then he played the Israeli anthem and we also got up. And then we were dancing Jewish dances in a circle. Obviously, in my vision, the lake was not surrounded by any buildings. After I passed the second door, at first I saw nothing. But then I saw a soldier in a steel armor, which displayed the body half naked. On his head he had a helmet with something covering his nose and a red war bonnet on top. There were a lot of soldiers there. Chaos, bangarang, but not a battle. It was either after a battle, either they were winding the camp down. Very warm, probably a desert but with hard-packed ground. This soldier was from my army and I was not low in the rank, rather closer to top, although he might have been higher. In his eyes, he had something aggressive and erotic at the same time. He was sort of twisting his body from a half squat, giving me the look. He was attractive for me. Then it was dark. A girl with very dark hair appeared. It was still warm, but there were rocks, a village or town, shade from canopy. She poured me some white liquid into a mug, like yogurt or kefir or soured milk, and she handed it to me in silence. There might have been a language barrier. However, with some dedication, there was something very erotic about that. Yet after a while, a grey-bearded guy in red vesture loomed, as if taken from paintings of prophets of Israel. He said nothing, but his look was telling that he doesn't approve of this exchange of gazes between me and his daughter, or perhaps also my and our presence there. It was dark again. The last picture I had was of the lake again, yet seen from a rock. When I saw the military camp, I had this feeling of not identifying with it, with the military, that it was against me. Now, there, over the lake, I had this feeling that I am curious what happens next, that I should push on. And all this time I had a strong conviction that it was Israel, not Syria, not Petra, where I have also been, but Galilee, Judea. Here I should mention that when I was in Israel, I felt very well, familiar, and I don't recall a feeling of this kind as I was traveling across Jordan and Syria. Paulina remained seated, pale, concentrated, and moved. And what was your incarnation? I just remember you were a Roman soldier.
I saw myself from the outside. I was a soldier pushing 40, with a quite handsome face. He had big lips.
Everted. Something had me say.
Yes.
Paulina seemed moved even more.
He was walking across the desert with despair on his face. Something did not come off for him. When I woke up from this image, I cried. There was also some kind of a party, bonfire, food, the army. A palace by the water.
Caesarea. Herod had a palace on the sea there.
I could have been the soldier that you saw. Who are we? Brothers? Father and son?
I had a feeling that I was around 30, and that he was one of the highest in the rank. I was high as well, but he was probably higher. What times were these? I had a strong feeling that it was before the Crusades, but did they have armors from sheathing? And those helmets with feathers? That it was before Christianity, in fact. Although I'm not sure if we were Romans. Rather, could you Google pictures of Alexander the Great's army? In a second we were struck dumb, because the internet showed exactly the armors I described, including red feathers. Neither of us is that good in history. Go to Wikipedia and check the route of Alexander's conquest. Did he pass through Israel? Well, yes, he did. Paulina, you have to go to Israel.
Derori keraleveim bat vein sarachem kemavat nein shimchevelo yo Shabbat Shevu v'enuchu b'yom Shabbat.
If you had to say, how many % do you believe in that, what number it would be?
Around 70.
Me too. That's pretty much.
Yes.
Oh, now we will be like all those guys. He's my best mate. We fought together in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. Paulina, Piotr is my best mate, you know. Nothing brings people together as strong as fighting in the same unit. Oh, and where did you two fight together? They would ask. Well, in the army of Alexander the Great. Or take the question how we met. Until now, we would reply that we met on our first year of studies of Polish philology. Then Paulina drifted to psychology. My initial impression was that she has a nose in the air. Many thought the same of me. And it was simply this general's nose. Then, on the second year, we were doing the same class on Romanticism, on the third literary theory and linguistic theory, when she said this famous phrase looking into my student's book. Oh, you used to be so young and beautiful. Now you're only beautiful. Then there was a pause. We met on a street. She was telling me about keywords in psychological portraits. I was talking about my first grey hair. She asked, "What is your initial association with grey hair?" To which I replied, "Grey hair?" And she summarized, "It's worse than I thought." Then it snowballed and thickened. So, how did you guys know each other? How did you meet? We both served at the Alexander the Great's army.